You know, the most important systems in our lives are often the ones we can't see. Underneath every app you tap, every website you visit, and especially every AI model that's reshaping our world, there is this hidden architecture. So in this series, we're going to pull back the curtain on the history of these invisible systems. And we're starting with a mystery, a single phrase that haunted engineers for decades.
All right, let's set the scene. For years, decades really, the whole world of software basically ran on a quiet prayer and a little bit of luck. And it all seemed to circle around this one single infamous phrase, a phrase that almost always meant project delays, blown budgets, and sometimes total, utter catastrophe.
Now you hear that and you think, okay, that's just an excuse, right? But it wasn't. It was actually a perfect diagnosis of a really deep systemic failure. It was a clue that the computer a developer used to build the code and the server that actually ran it for the rest of the world, well, they were like two completely different universes. And the gap between those universes could get incredibly expensive.
How expensive? Try $440 million. That was the price tag for one of the most famous financial disasters in recent memory, and it was caused by this exact problem. See, back in 2012, a trading firm called Knight Capital was pushing out a software update.
And it turns out, a technician just forgot to copy the new code to one of their 8 servers. Just one. So you had 7 servers running the new trading logic, and this one rogue server running old, obsolete code. That tiny inconsistency sent the whole system into a tailspin, making all these unauthorized trades. The company lost almost $500 million in less than an hour. It was so bad, it led to their collapse, all because what worked on one machine failed spectacularly on another.
The culprit actually has a name. It's called environment drift, and here's the best way to think about it. A developer's computer is like their own perfectly clean kitchen. Every tool, every ingredient, it's exactly where they expect it to be. But a production server, that's more like a chaotic restaurant kitchen that's been used by dozens of different chefs over many years. Things have been moved, settings have been tweaked, and of course, nobody wrote any of it down. The exact same recipe can produce a completely different meal in each kitchen.
But this problem was bigger than just one developer's machine versus one server. As software got more and more complex, this single point of failure started to scale exponentially. It created this nightmare scenario that engineers grimly called the matrix of hell.
And this is kind of what that chaos looked like. You can see M represents every piece of software you're trying to run. Your website, your database, your payment system, all of it. And N is every single computer it has to run on. So every time you add a new piece of software or you add a new server, the number of potential breaking points just multiplies.
And living inside this matrix was a monster that engineers called dependency hell. See, to save time, developers don't write every single thing from scratch. They use these pre-built blocks of code called libraries. It's smart. But what happens when 2 different parts of your app need 2 different, conflicting versions of the same library? It's like one of your recipes calls for a gas oven and another one needs an electric one, but you've only got one kitchen. The whole system just grinds to a halt.
So for a really long time, the industry's best answer to all this chaos was, well, it was powerful, but it was also deeply flawed. They basically decided that if they couldn't make every kitchen identical, they would just build a brand new, perfectly isolated kitchen for every single meal. And this solution was called the virtual machine, or VM. A VM isn't just a separate kitchen, though. It's a full-blown emulation of an entire computer. We're talking its own operating system, its own memory, its own storage. It's like building a whole separate house with its own plumbing and electricity just to run one single application. Yeah, it guarantees consistency, but it comes at a tremendous cost.
This really shows you the gap between the reality of the virtual machine and what engineers were really dreaming of. VMs were absolutely massive. We're talking gigabytes of space, and they took minutes to start up. The dream was something tiny, lightweight, something that could start in seconds. VMs were clunky, hard to move around. The ideal was something fast and universal that could run anywhere. So yeah, the VM was a solution, but it was a heavy, slow, inefficient compromise. The real breakthrough, the idea that would change everything, it wasn't going to come from computer science. Nope. To find the answer, we actually have to leave the world of software completely. We have to go back in time to the shipping docks of the 1950s and meet an entrepreneur who was facing his own matrix of hell.
It sounds like a strange question, right? But the answer would change the course of technology. Because before the 1950s, trying to load a cargo ship was just as chaotic, just as messy as trying to deploy software.
Back then, it was called break bulk shipping, and that meant every single item, every sack of flour, every barrel of oil, every crate of machinery was handled one by one. Longshoremen would have to load each unique thing by hand. The process was incredibly slow, it was expensive, and things got damaged all the time. Ships would spend more time just sitting in port being loaded than they actually spent at sea.
And then, this entrepreneur, a guy named Malcolm McLean, had this revolutionary insight. He realized everyone was focused on the wrong thing. They were all obsessed with the cargo. McLean's idea was simple, but it was profound. Stop worrying about what's inside and standardize the box. By creating a standard, sealed, intermodal shipping container, the cost of loading cargo just plummeted, from almost $6 a ton to just 16 cents. It didn't matter what was in the box. The crane only needed to know one thing: how to lift the box.
And this simple idea, a standard, sealed box, this held the key. Not just to solving software deployment, but to solving an existential crisis that was brewing right at the heart of modern science and AI.
So what's this number? Well, this number represents a catastrophic failure, really, at the core of the scientific method itself.
A landmark survey in the journal Nature revealed that science has a massive reproducibility crisis. Researchers would publish these incredible, groundbreaking results, but then, when other scientists tried to run the very same code on their own computers, they'd get totally different answers. Or worse, the code just wouldn't run at all. That old problem, "it works on my machine," was now undermining the very foundation of scientific trust.
And for AI engineers, this whole problem is 10 times worse. AI models are incredibly sensitive, just finicky things. They rely on really specialized software, like NVIDIA's CUDA platform, to talk to these powerful graphics cards. A tiny, tiny difference in a graphics card driver, or a minor update to a math library, that can cause a model to produce completely different results. Researchers were literally spending more time fighting with their computers than they were actually doing research.
So the solution was becoming clear. Software, and especially scientific and AI software, needed its own version of the shipping container. It needed a standard box that could seal the code and all of its unique dependencies inside, guaranteeing it would run the exact same way every time on any machine. And eventually, that idea, the software shipping container, finally arrived. But in solving one massive problem, it created an entirely new one.
What happened was companies started breaking their huge applications into hundreds of these tiny, independent services, and each one lived in its own perfect little box. So, great, they solved the problem of the individual unit. But now they had thousands of them. Their data centers basically became these vast, chaotic shipping yards with no traffic controller, no air traffic control, just chaos.
The industry had finally figured out what to ship. They had their standard box. But now they had to figure out how to manage the entire fleet. How do you possibly conduct an orchestra of thousands, even millions, of these moving boxes all at once? Well, that's the next part of our story. Join us next time as we uncover the battle to build the brain of the modern data center.